Good to have you here, 3 and Out, all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin Thomas, BJ Bennett, Ben Troop, glad you're making us a part of your day. So much to get to here on the show. We'll hear from Anthony Trace, Pro Football Focus, coming up in just a little bit. We'll do a little buy, sell, hold here on the show today, and also look at the college football preseason top 25 that is out today as well. So a lot to get to. Ryan Davis set to join us coming up here in just a little bit as we'll get the very latest going on with Jags camp, but obviously a former defensive lineman, BJ. He's a guy that knows that defensive front needs some work.
Yeah, Ben, I think you're talking about a team that has a lot of excitement, a lot of energy. You think about Trevor Lawrence, you think about Travis Etienne, Laviska Shenault, a lot of excitement offensively. Defensively, you got to improve up front, and I think that improvement starts with the defensive line.
Taven Bryan and those interior defensive linemen, BJ, is really, really going to be tested here early. I think there was so much talk, Kevin and BJ, about, Trevor Lawrence this. Tebow Manning that. Travis Etienne this. Well, neither one of those guys play defense. None of them definitely play defensive line. And when you look at what was a big problem last year for the Jacksonville Jaguars, that would be that interior defensive line help, or they're going to need some help. So, yeah, when I look at everything that Jacksonville is trying to do, if they can't get an interior push from that defensive line, if they can't create a new line of scrimmage on that defensive line, it's going to be much to do about nothing.
Yeah, and again, Jacksonville going to have a lot of work defensively. Everybody's going to show up for the offense, but the defense is going to be what wins them some games, BJ.
And to me, I think that's what's going to determine how far this team can go. And I get and understand and agree with all of the kind of the spotlight and the news being on the offense here in training camp, because Trevor Lawrence is the number 1 overall pick. He's, outside of, I think, a couple of days ago, looked the part in every way. Travis Etienne, you've gotten big-time reviews on his ability, especially as a pass catcher. And then even some names, Walker Little has really stood out along the offensive line in terms of what he brings. And then we all know about Tebow Mania, and he's had some highlights. But defensively, Ben, is that where we're really going to find out how good the Jaguars can be? Because if we're just being honest, and I know you've talked a couple of times about they can't tackle number 22 up at Tennessee. Well, nobody can do that first and foremost, but you've really struggled. And I think your 2 first-round picks from a year ago, C.J. Henderson wasn't able to play a full season. K'Lavon Chaisson, you're kind of waiting and seeing where you are. Taven Bryan along the interior of the defensive line has had his moments, but you haven't been consistent. You have some newness at linebacker. So I think a lot of questions defensively. The focus is on the offense, but a lot of questions defensively for the Jags.
I think for me, BJ, it's going to come down to that, to the defensive line. But, hopefully those guys can gel sooner rather than later.
And we have found former Jacksonville Jaguar Ryan Davis, who joins us here on 3 and Out. Ryan, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, man, I'm good. How are you guys?
Hey, we are doing fantastic. We were just talking about that Jags defensive line, and obviously that could be a key part for Jacksonville, as they don't have a lot of proven commodities there on that defensive front.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's a lot of young guys up front. So, we're waiting to see, but it's exciting to see so far, though. I think I don't even know what kind of camp K'Lavon is having, but, because I haven't been out there yet. But I'm excited for him to take a leap this year, and I think Josh Allen will figure it out as well.
I was going to say, Ryan, when you talk about the Jaguars this preseason, everybody's going to talk about Trevor and Travis Etienne and Tebow and everybody on offense. But how much in terms of Jacksonville's ability to take a step forward is going to depend on what they can actually do defensively and the progress they can show there?
I mean, that's a huge part of, if they have success. Defense, I mean, we've seen what they've done in 2017 with a great defense. So a good defense, stop another team from scoring is the name of the game. Trevor's going to put butts in the seats. He's going to have an awesome year. And I think the offense is going to be explosive. But if you can't stop, teams from scoring, then your chances of winning are very slim. So I think it's very pivotal for the defense to come out and just be dominant like they used to be.
And Ryan, how much does those four guys gelling really determine how well the defense plays as a whole? I know you got that alpha dog and Josh Allen. I know that Chason is going to have to make some huge strides in year number 2, but you guys got to work together as a unit. I understand that one guy is probably going to end up getting more fanfare than other guys, but how well is it? How well is it you guys playing as a defense to determine upon y'all front four really gelling as a unit?
That's key. That's important, man. And it takes you got to have the right guys in the locker room for that. Me being the guy that I was and coming up, and I knew my role. I knew I had to be good at my role, so that's why I was able to carve out a niche for myself. When I played, I knew it wasn't about me, and then we all kind of understood that we had a little bit of I think that's why we gelled so well back in my day as a D-line. But in this case, I think that's what's got to happen this year. I mean, guys got to be selfless. And just learn, just hang out off the field and all that kind of stuff. I think all of that helps because it makes it easier for you to communicate with one another when you're genuinely friends and you're hanging out and you kind of get a feel for a guy. It's easier to talk to. So when a guy messes up here, hey, you can come at him and talk to him a certain way. All of that kind of matters. So that front four definitely has to gel, for the back seven to kind of feed off of them.
Ryan, kind of take us inside the mindset of defense as a whole. When you look at a roster, I would imagine if you're in Kansas City and you have Pat Mahomes and all those weapons, you might think, hey, we don't need to be elite and we're going to win a lot of ball games. We just need to not cost us the game. If you're in Jacksonville right now and you're looking at Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne and all the folks talking about the offense, what's the mindset defensively about where they need to be in order to be successful as a team? Are they a team that feels like, hey, we're going to have to go out and try to hold people to 17 or less to give us a chance to win? Or do they feel like, hey, if we could just play solid defense, our offense will pick us up?
I think the defense has to be elite this year, only because it's a lot of youth, on the offense, only because there's a lot of youth on the team, period. But especially on the offensive side, Trevor's going to be what we know him. Trevor's going to be all world, in our eyes. But he's still a rookie this year. Same thing with Travis Etienne, it's a lot of second and third year players on the squad. So we need our defense to go out there and be elite and be good. They need to be at least be top 10 this year, and to give our team the ultimate confidence boost. I think the offense is going to be. I think it's going to be head and shoulders, above last year, of course. But I think we need to be elite this year just to give our team a chance. Not just for the future, but right now, it's a real good chance that we can, the Jazz can take over and win a division this year, hopefully.
Ryan, what's going to be the biggest challenge for Trevor Lawrence now being the guy? And I know it's an open quarterback competition, but at some point being the guy and maintaining his focus through all the hype and all the attention.
Man, I think he's focused. In my opinion, because I think this is something he's been groomed for this since it seems like high school. He's been like the number one recruit, number one player in college, and now his number one pick. I don't think it's too much for his shoulders to carry. I think he welcomes this, and for him to come to a city like Jacksonville, a blue collar, hard working city, a city that's going to rally behind him, I think it's a perfect situation for him. I think he's going to grow to be everything we know him to be. I think he's going to get it done. I think it's nothing too big for him, and I think he's just going to be awesome, period.
And Ryan, going back to something you said earlier about, you talk about the defensive line and being able to really get at guys sometimes. I know that coaches are going to preach expectations. As players, we have to drive that expectation. You being a guy that, being a rookie, you kind of sitting back and letting the veterans kind of show you the way. Once you got 2 or 3 years under your belt, you can kind of go to guys saying, look, man, this is what it's going to take. I'm not coming at you because I don't think you can do it. I'm coming at you because I'm going to need you play in and play out. Just talk about being a D lineman, understanding, look, man, my production is only predicated on y'all other 3 guys. We need to be, coming together as one because, as you mentioned, a lot of young guys on this defense, especially on that defensive line. Chason, he's built, for speed. He got a very, very slim guy. What would be your approach being able to talk to guys in one-on-one conversations, not away from the camera saying, look, dude, if I need to come to your crib and talk to you because we got to make business decisions every single play when we out there.
Right. And that's, you just gotta talk to guys and let them know, like, hey, we got to gel together. We got to talk about stuff. You don't know stuff, communicate. I think communication is the biggest key to all of this. A quiet D-line or a quiet defense is a bad defense. You want to communicate. You want to hear the defense out there talking loud. And then, if y'all all are wrong, y'all all are right because everybody's on the same page. And I think that's what they have to get, to be a good squad. So defensive line-wise, it's going to take all four of them to gel together. Not going to win, and you're not going to win a lot of one-on-ones in this league. That doesn't happen every play. I mean, if you look at the success rate across the league, it doesn't happen like a lot, more times than none, unless you're Aaron Donald or somebody. But, you got to gel together. You got to run games, like your stunts and games and all that kind of stuff. Even when your number's not called, you got to do what you got to do for the next man to be free. So that's why you got to have the right group of guys and just be selfless and have an honest conversation. You got to be open, have that open line of communication. So as long as there's no egos involved and everybody's communicating and everybody's on the same page, the D-line can really get it done and have fun doing it at the same time.
Ryan Davis joining us here on 3 and Out. Ryan, your thoughts on Urban Meyer? Obviously, the college credentials are out there for everybody to see, but first time at the pro level, what do you think he has to prove to the guys in the locker room as they go forward?
What do you have to prove to guys in the locker room? Honestly, I don't know, man. I think he has to be as advertised. I mean, you hear a lot of college coaches come in and, try to do too much and try to put their foot down. But I think the word on Urban was that he's been a pretty tough coach all his career. You know what I'm saying? So guys in the league kind of respected that. He got a ton of players that's in the NFL now. So all he has to do is carry that philosophy he's been doing there over here. And I think he'll see success. I think, and it's a good situation with him coming to Jacksonville at that. I believe it's a lot of young guys on the squad. So, a lot of guys are going to be, green to, all the kind of stuff that's going the league per se. So, Urban is as advertised. I think he's going to come in, and I think a lot of guys are going to respect him off rip. And I don't think it's going to be, too much of a coaching problem with him. I think he's pretty much confident in who he is as a coach and his staff, and I think he knows what he wants to do. So that's important.
A lot of attention on Tim Tebow, obviously, Ryan, and that's going back to when he was signed, and who knows if he's even going to make the team or kind of what his role will be. But do you think what he's doing is realistic? I mean, he's obviously one of the all-time great college players, and now moving from quarterback to tight end. Do you think he's a guy that can be an impact player, switching positions like he is?
Honestly, it could work, man. I had my thoughts about it at first. Like, what's going on? He's 33 and, out of position and whatnot. But I mean, Tebow's always been a guy that's been in shape, and you can't question Tebow's heart. You know what I'm saying? So that in itself is going to give Tebow a chance. And I think, and for me, I think knowing that quarterbacks have natural hands. So him going over to catch the ball and whatnot, that doesn't really surprise me. I mean, if you look around the league, a lot of ex-QBs are tight ends and whatnot. So it's not far-fetched. And I think, Tebow has a legit shot now, in my opinion. He's strong, and he can mix it up. You don't know what he's going to do. You don't know what Urban's going to do. There's a lot of guys right there that can mix it up, do different packages, especially with him, Etienne, Shenault. Those are three guys that come to mind. Laviska, and those are three guys that come to mind, on this offense that you can really mix it up, definitely in a red zone area. I think it'll get very interesting. So Tebow has a legit shot, for real.
But Ryan, I mean, the D-line room, though, okay, you on the Jaguars right now. That D-line coach, I mean, he going to say all the right things, and then we all go in there and say, listen, if number 85, Tim Tebow, gets in front of you and he's trying to block you, he will not block us. I mean, that's what y'all saying about tight ends anyway. I'm not trying to make it all about Tim Tebow. I'm pretty sure that's what y'all told. You cannot get blocked one-on-one by a tight end. But does it make it a little bit more knowing that, Tim Tebow, he comes with a crowd. Tebow mania is real. But Ryan, he's in front of you. And I know you probably say, oh yeah, man, I grew up watching you a little bit, but I saw you standing behind the center. Now you standing in front of me. That's a total different ball game when he putting his hand in the dirt right in front of you.
Oh, it's a totally different ball game, man. Yeah, and that's what our coaches say. Tight ends better not ever block you. So if you're getting blocked by a tight end that used to be a QB and hadn't played in I don't know how many seasons, 8, 9, I don't know how many seasons. Yeah, you're gonna hear something from coach. You know what I'm saying? That should not happen. You know what I'm saying? But Tebow looks strong. Like he looks strong as an ox in these pictures and videos that I'm seeing. Like he looked like he about 250. So, you know, hey, if he blocks you one play, all right, you know, you gotta let coach know that. You small over there, man. Come on, give me a break. Yeah, it shouldn't happen, but you know, I think Tebow. The most important thing about blocking is you want to. As long as you want to block, shoot, you can be. There's a lot of guys that played a long time just being a pesky blocker, not necessarily strong at the point of attack, but just getting in your way and giving you that extra shove and nudge down the field. Tebow can do all of that kind of stuff. I feel like, and he can be good in this scheme.
Ryan Davis, our guest here on 3 and Out. Ryan, always a pleasure. Thanks so much. We'll talk soon.
Oh man, appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. Ryan Davis, our guest here on 3 and Out. And as he said, you know, Ben, you said it too, if Tebow's the one lining up against you and he's holding you up, you might be getting that, hey, coach wants to see you, bring your playbook.
I mean, it's not gonna be. It's not. I mean, listen, I playing tight end my whole life. I know what the conversations are when it comes to those defensive ends. I mean, I know what the conversations are when it comes to the defensive linemen. These are people I spent my whole life going up against. But tight ends essentially aren't supposed to be able to block a defensive end one-on-one. But if it's a tight end who used to play quarterback, no, who's never played tight end, blocking you, and listen, the last thing you want to hear is good job, Tebow, and he's not catching the ball. He's gonna block you 5 yards off the ball. You know Tebow Manning finna go crazy. Basically, Ryan is saying, Tebow, I respect you, but this is how I make my money, homeboy. So I do this to everybody. Don't take offense to it. Pray for me after practice.
we got more to come here. 3 and Out on this Wednesday. Anthony Trace, Pro Football Focus, will join us in about 15 minutes. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Welcome back, 3 and Out here on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. We'll hear from Anthony Traish, Pro Football Focus, coming up in just a little bit. We'll talk some college football with him. He recently had a story out, biggest question mark for every college football playoff contender. So we'll get his thoughts on some of those coming up in just a little bit. But BJ, last night, Max Fried, good pitching performance. Braves win. Mets lose. All is right in the world. Braves all of a sudden, from the gnashing of teeth you hear daily about the Braves on social media, 2.5 games out, despite it all, of first place.
It's really crazy to think about, guys, that Atlanta has not had a winning streak in 3 weeks? 4 weeks? You've not had a single winning streak, and you are now 2.5 games out in the National League East. And in terms of last night, yeah, great to see the offense get going early. Freeman, Soler, Swanson, really doing it big. I think another home run for Freddie. But Max Fried, that was great to see. You get 6 complete innings, shutout ball, 7 strikeouts. Ben, you mentioned the walks yesterday. Just 1 walk for Max. That was a really encouraging sign for Max moving forward. But yeah, I mean, think about this. Atlanta has not played well in a month. Like, I think we all feel comfortable saying Atlanta has not had a good stretch of baseball in a month. And they're 2.5 games out in the division. It is right there. I know you said yesterday, Kevin, the Mets and the Phillies are kind of looking at you going, come on, take it. And they are. The Mets have lost back-to-back games to the Marlins. The Marlins without Marte, without Duvall. Atlanta is right there. And, the question becomes, can you put together a streak? Can you win a game tonight? And we'll see what Drew Smyly can do setting the tone there. But you have head-to-heads coming up with Philadelphia and New York. The Mets have the NL West coming up on their schedule rotation. You feel like you can win this division. And I don't know that I would have said that a couple of weeks ago. I was starting to get a little iffy when the Braves got, 6.5 back. But you're talking about 2.5, and you haven't even played well yet? I mean, if you can string together 7 out of 9, 10 out of 13, you're going to be in first place. With the way the Phillies are struggling and the Mets are really struggling. Phillies have played better, but the Mets are really struggling. Ben, it's right there.
Bravo to the Bravos, right? I mean, seriously. And the thing is, Kevin, I mean, something we talk about all year is, obviously you'll take 6 innings pitched, 0 earned runs, but he made it to 6 innings. Like, how much less pressure does it put on that bullpen knowing, we come out, the 7th and the 8th and the 9th compared to having to come in the bottom of sometimes top of the 4th. Sometimes the game is, that first inning, they gave up 4 runs. That gets everything out of whack. You look at Freddie Freeze doing Freddie Free things, 3 or 4, with a homer. I just think that, BJ, when I look at this Braves team, this is why the frustration comes, because they're that good and they're good enough to do this every night. Now, do you expect them to do it every night? No, but you understand that this Braves team, they usually play down to less competition. Then when you're talking about teams that's good enough to meet that talent threshold, they play like they did last night. I do agree that the Phillies right now, as well as the Mets, are saying, come on, Braves, because once again, a winning culture is important in baseball when you don't got the big names like the Dodgers do or the Yankees do. They got some of the biggest names on the same team. The Braves doing it with Max Fried, who still trying to establish himself as one of the best young pitchers in the game. Ronald Acuna Jr. is out right now, and they're still getting it done. Very, very impressed by the Braves. Once again, Snit, Alex Anthopoulos, they got something going. I mean, I keep going back to how Alex Anthopoulos got his job. I mean, like I say, he got guys with FBI jackets on walking by him when he bringing his stuff in. And then Snit was the guy that was with the organization for all those years. Those two things usually don't gel for a winning franchise, but those guys only knowing winning the National League East, and dare I say they on their way to doing it again. BJ, maybe the Mets are just running out of gas. I hope they keep running out of gas because it's hard to maintain leads. Hopefully the Braves can, get those 2.5, Kevin, and hopefully they can keep this type of momentum going.
Well, I think this is the point where you really start to think, okay, you're there, BJ, because you're a good weekend away from being in first place. You're a good 3-day stretch from being in first place. And you feel like you can do that. And again, it's more amazing that you haven't won 2 games in a row since before the All-Star break. Now, you haven't lost 2 games in a row, but you haven't won 2 games in a row since before the All-Star break, which was in kind of early mid-July. We're in August now, and you're still putting together a string of win-loss. So I hope they break it tonight and put together a win streak, BJ, because I do feel like with some of the moves they made, Soler playing well, Adam Duvall gives you, again, love Adrianza, love Abraham Almonte, but Adam Duvall gives you a better chance to win every night right now. And if this team can put together a run of 6 out of 8, you very well could be sitting in first place. And I think that's the positive outlook here for this Braves team, is that they have in no way played tremendous baseball pretty much the entirety of the season. But as I said, all you want to do is get to the All-Star break with a chance. The Braves did that. They've kind of tread water. Other teams haven't run away with it. And here you are in August and September, coming up, the most 2 crucial months of the season, and you have not played your best baseball yet. If you do, you're likely going to win this division. That just seems to be the way it's headed. If you're Atlanta, with the run differential that you've been able to put up, your pitching is starting to look really, really good consistently night in, night out from a starting pitching standpoint. Man, I tell you what, there's a lot of signs that say this Braves team is on the cusp of putting together a 6 out of 8 run, a 5 out of 8 run, and really change the dynamic of their season.
Yes, and to echo your sentiments, I don't want to celebrate mediocrity, right? I don't want to look at the Braves and go, oh, they haven't played great baseball or even really good baseball yet. That's a good thing. But in terms of kind of expecting that boost in play, like you've said, I think that has to be on the horizon. I was talking about it with Christian earlier today. I mean, in 1 and 2 run games, Atlanta has a terrible winning percentage. You would think some of that's going to balance out. Even going back to the beginning of the year, you had a couple of 4-game losing streaks early. You had a couple of bad series right before the All-Star break. You've not had a single winning streak since the All-Star break. Even if this is not a great team, and I don't think that it is, you're going to have a stretch of quality play, a block of successful play somewhere. And we haven't really seen that yet, and I think it's inevitable. I think the ball's going to bounce back in their court, to use kind of a basketball saying. I think it's coming, and that's not a guarantee you're going to win the division. I mean, I think the Mets are going to bounce back. They're not as bad as they've shown the last couple of nights. You got to give the Phillies credit for sort of turning their season around. But if you look at it and you say Atlanta is right there, they're within a weekend of the division lead, and they have not played really good baseball yet. In some ways, it's frustrating as the struggles have been, and, losing series you shouldn't and not being able to have a winning streak. It's kind of encouraging because you've been able to hang around and at least remain in the mix without being at your best, without being even kind of at your best. For the most part, you've been a below average to average baseball team. And I'm still going to go back to the starting pitching. I think the reason you're in the position you are is because for the last month, for the last 6 to 8 weeks, Charlie Morton's been great. You've seen Touki Toussaint, Kyle Muller. They've been fantastic. Drew Smiley, who I was very critical of earlier in the year, has really turned it around. I mean, give him a lot of credit. You've made some changes in the bullpen, and you've brought in some new guys. So I think there's an energy. I think there's an expectation level. And Kevin, you mentioned the Mets schedule. Next couple of weeks for the Braves, you obviously have to finish up against St. Louis. You have the Washington Nationals. Keep in mind, that is not your dad's Washington Nationals squad. I mean, that's a team without a lot of its key players. Then you have the Reds. Then you have the Nats again. Then you have Miami, and then you have Baltimore. I mean, on paper, you're going to be favored for the vast majority of the games you have this month. There's a real chance here.
I just think at the end of the day, BJ, man, what's most impressive about the Braves is I always go back to the start of the season. And I'm gonna do what you do, BJ. If you would have told me that this would have been the scenario, what would have been the outcome? And I think the Braves are, like, when you don't have nothing to compare something to, like, oh, this team did this, that team did that, they're carving out their own legacy. And this is a team that's saying we don't want to go back to not winning the division. We don't want to go back to having retool years. I remember in 2018, it was all in for 2019. Then they took it to another level last year in 2020, the Ian Andersons. And, the season only, they got saved by maybe the worst commissioner in professional sports. But I just like the momentum of this team. They don't do it nobody else's way. BJ, sometimes they do it with starting pitching. Sometimes they do it with the bullpen. If you can get the bullpen starting pitching and that offense and those bats to wake up at the same time, the Braves don't have to make this thing a race at the end. They can kind of put their feet up. Because Kevin, if they can get a lead on the Mets, how much better would that be for them down the line?
So obviously, playing from ahead is a huge, huge advantage if the Braves could get there. Let's start with getting above 500 first, but the Braves certainly showing some signs of life here. We'll come back. We'll switch gears. We'll talk some college football. Anthony Trace, PFF, joins us next here on 3. Welcome back, 3 and Out on this Wednesday. Glad you are with us. College football coming up very rapidly, right around the corner. Our next guest from PFF recently has a story out. Biggest question mark for every college football playoff contender. He joins us here on the program. Anthony Trace here on 3 and Out. Anthony, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well. How you guys doing?
Hey, we're doing fantastic. And, college football coming up right around the corner. Let's start with some of those contenders because you have two squaring off in week one in Clemson and Georgia. What's the big question mark that's trying to get answered right there in week one?
Yeah, I mean, it's both on the offensive side of the ball. And I think probably the biggest question mark, and really I think probably the biggest storyline that could really drastically alter the entire college football season is JT Daniels. And I do think that we should probably kind of ease up the hype on him because I have seen in various sports books that he is actually the favorite to win the Heisman, which, you look at the Georgia team surrounding him, he is no doubt in one of the best situations. I mean, taking the quarterback out of the equation, there's a reasonable case to be made that Georgia could have the best roster in college football as the season goes on. I mean, it's very raw, but very high ceiling across the board at every single position. He's going to have a lot of pass-catching weapons, even without George Pickens there. But at the end of the day, looking at what he's done in his collegiate career, even that 4-game sample, he had with Georgia last year, he had an incredible debut. Probably one of the best single-game performances we saw in the 2020 season against Mississippi State. But those last 3 games, they left a lot to be desired, especially against the one true tough defense he faced against Cincinnati. That day in the Peach Bowl, he had a sub-50 passing grade, 4 turnover-worthy plays. He just kind of looked very much like his 2018 form as a true freshman at USC. And I think that is a major concern when looking at that first game against Clemson, because Clemson has one of the best defenses in college football. So this is going to be a very big test for JT Daniels and Georgia. And if he does, end up, reaching that expectation, that ceiling that everybody thinks he's going to obtain this upcoming season, I mean, he would really be a true outlier in that sense, just because looking at, how he started out his career, it was at such a level that was so low that we've never really seen anybody bounce back from that to anything remotely close to a Heisman-worthy type of level, or even leading a team to anywhere near the college football playoff. So, hopefully he proves me wrong, but I think that's the biggest concern with Georgia. As for Clemson, I think there is a minor concern with quarterback still. I mean, DJ Uiagalelei in those 2 spot starts he had against Boston College and Notre Dame last year, he looked, exceptional, all things considered. He showed off he had a rocket for an arm. He led efficient passing attacks in both outings. But, can he perform at the same level that Trevor Lawrence did on a weekly basis? I think that's the big concern, but also, too, the rushing attack. I think we're going to see a pretty steep drop in rushing efficiency from Clemson because they don't have Travis Etienne back there in the backfield, that home run hitter on any given play. I mean, they do still have a talented backfield. I'm a big fan of Lynn J. Dixon, the senior that's going to be leading the charge there, but I don't think they're going to be leading the Power 5, in rushing EPA per play there, like they did over the last 3 seasons with Travis Etienne by a considerable margin. So those are the things I'm really looking for. But I think the biggest question mark and the thing that's really going to change the college football season is JT Daniels.
Wow. When you look at Alabama, every year expectations at a championship level, what's the biggest question for the Crimson Tide?
Yeah, and I mean, it sounds crazy to say considering that this guy was one of the most highly regarded quarterback recruits, over the last decade, according to 247 Sports. But it's quarterback. It's quarterback Bryce Young. And I say that just because what Alabama has had at quarterback over the last couple of seasons, I mean, consistently been, a top-tier passer. There have been no off days from Tua or Mac Jones. And 2, you look at Steve Sarkisian as a play caller. He led, he helped execute a passing offense that never generated negative EPA per play in any single outing over the last 2 seasons. I mean, that was truly, outlierish. It's really hard to do that. And I think, losing Mac Jones, losing Steve Sarkisian and Devonta Smith, I mean, that's a lot of pressure on Bryce Young and even John Mechie, too, who's going to try and be the firm leader of that receiving unit that is very, has a lot of potential, but not a lot of experience there. And, welcoming in a new play caller as well. So, I think it's Bryce Young. What he did last year, he didn't start any games like DJ, but we did get to see him take some snaps in garbage time. But what he did in that, mop-up duty, he had some very, some mistakes that you really shouldn't have in those types of scenarios. He took around 7 sacks, I believe, had 3 turnover-worthy plays, and he only took 31 dropbacks. he still had some moments where you're like, okay, I can see why this guy was such a highly regarded recruit, because he can do some stuff when he's knocked off rhythm, outside of structure on those long developing plays that, they look special. So I do think the potential is there. It's just whether or not that he can, consistently perform at his high ceiling right away in year one of starting. And I'm not so sure that he's going to do that week in and week out. So I still think this is a very good Alabama team. Taking quarterback out of the equation, they definitively do have the best roster in college football right now. And I think Georgia and Ohio State are right there behind them, even Oklahoma. But looking at that roster, it's absolutely stacked. So he's in a fantastic situation still. But he still has a lot of pressure on him. Like I said, the Crimson Tide have not had, anything below an above average offense in any single game over the last couple of seasons. So, I'm kind of nervous to see if he can actually sustain that. And I think, going back to what I said a few months ago, that did spark some waves. And I do think that's going to make that week one game against Miami a little bit closer than a lot of people think. So, I'm curious to see how that's going to be. That all these question marks surrounding the quarterback position, I think it's just going to make this college football season a lot more uncertain than most think.
And Anthony, Emory Jones, higher rushing grade than Malik Willis and Justin Fields, at 2020 per PFF. And you look at what he brings to a Florida offense that's going to be that's going to be without, Kyle Pitts, Kadarius Toney. He's not Dak Prescott. He's not Tim Tebow. He's not, he's not any of the quarterbacks of the past, under Dan Mullen. But does he have the ability to be just as good, if not better, than those guys?
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I think, the biggest concern with him is not just like him as a player, but more the situation he's in. And I think he does have the benefit of having one of the best play callers in college football with Dan Mullen. I mean, we saw it this past season. He made life him and Brian Johnson both made life a lot easier on Kyle Trask. And I think that he's going to put Emory Jones in the best position to succeed weekly. And I think Emory Jones is going to execute, because you look what the flashes he's had over the last few years, both as a passer and as a runner. I mean, he showed he has the skill set to be an elite dual threat quarterback. He just doesn't have the receiving weapons around him, like Kyle Trask did. Like you said, no Kyle Pitts, no Kadarius Toney. So I think that's going to be the big question mark for his development. And I think that's what's really going to be the deciding factor as to whether or not, Florida's going to actually be, the same type of team as they were last season. But I do have a lot of faith in Emory Jones being that type of player. I think he's going to be a very special player for Florida. And hopefully, I think he will become, one of the premier talks of the 2022 NFL draft.
And when you look at the situation, in LSU right now, Brennan goes down, but you still got Max Johnson, who there was going to be in a quarterback battle. I know that you mentioned that JT Daniels is probably one of the most intriguing players with the situation that he's in, but injuries are a part of it, right? JT Daniels, he wasn't able to play last year as quick as he wanted to because of injury. If a guy like JT Daniels or Emory Jones goes down, what quarterback or what team can ill afford to have their quarterback go down, and who's in the best position as a backup quarterback to still have their postseason aspirations and kind of stay afloat if their quarterback does go down?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really tough question. And I really don't think there's anybody. And like in the event of LSU, we've always been here at PFF much more higher on Myles Brennan than Max Johnson. Max definitely has the opportunity to become a very quality college quarterback, but he just didn't really look ready. Myles Brennan looked ready for the show, and I think that what kind of separates them. I actually did have another article there, and it was funny because I actually wrote out the 5 sleeper teams in college football, and really I drafted this idea to do the article around LSU because I thought they were being slept on majorly. I thought they were a top 10 team, and then a few hours after submission, Myles Brennan, unfortunately, the news came out that he broke his arm. He was going to miss some time. But, I don't think that there's really another, quarterback situation right now where if you put in a backup that they really can lead the team to a college football playoff. Ohio State definitely comes to mind. I mean, that quarterback room has so much potential, and I'm still even nervous about C.J. Stroud, just because, again, it's a similar situation as Alabama. Can he replicate what Justin Fields did? Because Justin Fields was one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen in the PFF college era. And again, he does go to a fantastic situation, has the 2 best wide receivers in college football, not just the best duo, the 2 best wide receivers with Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. So that's definitely going to help him a little bit. But can he consistently be that guy? And I think, all of those quarterbacks up there, if they were have to go in that type of situation, I think the same question would be asked there. So, I don't think confidently I can say that if any of these starting quarterbacks were to go down, that their backup could step up and still lead them to success into the college football playoff.
Anthony Trace, PFF, our guest here on 3 and Out. Anthony, really appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me on, guys.
Appreciate it. Anthony Trace joining us here, and you can check him out there, PFF. He's got the biggest question mark out for every college football playoff contender here in 2021. You can read that right now there, PFF. We'll come back. Much more to come, including some breaking news around Georgia Southern and their football team. We'll get to that next. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you here on this Wednesday. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. Georgia Southern, Chad Lunsford having his kind of first preseason press conference today, announcing that Georgia Southern going to be without Justin Tomlin for the first 2 games, suspended for academic reasons. Chad Lunsford saying basically some stuff that happened early in Justin Tomlin's career at Georgia Southern caught up with him academically. He's going to miss the first 2 games because of that, which will, if you're wondering at home, will be the Gardner-Webb game and the Florida Atlantic game, and he will be back for Georgia Southern's game against Arkansas in the 3rd week.
Yeah, and you wonder what that does to the depth chart. Not a ton of experience in terms of guys with multiple years of playing time at quarterback behind Tomlin, but then you look at James Graham, obviously, who came in from Georgia Tech. He was the starting quarterback at Georgia Tech for a number of games early in Jeff Collins' tenure, and he moved to wide receiver in the summer. So you wonder if that could be a situation to look at. But, hopefully Justin will bounce back. But it'll be interesting to see what Georgia Southern does with the depth chart at quarterback for those first couple of games.
Yeah, Coach Lunsford. I mean, people always ask, what is it? What is the hard part about being a head coach? It's things like this. I mean, he's putting together the best program he possibly can. It's a great program at Georgia Southern. But like you said, Kevin kind of got caught up. I mean, 2 games is a lot in college football, but hopefully he'll be raring to go because that quarterback room has definitely taken a big hit with a guy who you was definitely probably had etched in to be your starter this year.
Change the preparation because you're going to get Justin Tomlin back, but you got to get somebody ready for those first 2 ball games right out of the gate, Gardner-Webb and FAU as well. We'll come back next hour. We'll take 3. Also play a little buy, sell, hold out there regarding college football as well. Some early season storylines. We'll see if Ben, BJ are in on it, out, or if they're just going to wait and see what they will have to do. Hour 2 coming up next. Welcome back. Hour 2 here, 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, Ben, we're going to buy, sell, hold coming up here in about 20 minutes. Talking some college football, hit you with some storylines, and they will tell me whether they are in, out, or on the fence as far as some of those storylines are concerned. We'll also get you updated on some of the cool things happening around the Olympics as well. But first, fellas, let's take 3 here on 3 and Out. All right, take 1. Hawks in the news. They have re-signed Trae Young, which we talked about yesterday on the show. Also, John Collins did accept the 5-year, $125 million deal. Are they still a superstar away from the finals, or do they just need to find the right role players to get there?
I wouldn't say superstar. I think you have your superstar in Trae Young, and I think there may be only 10, 15 superstar type players in the league. I think it's tough to say add another top 10, top 15 player, but I think a star away. I think if you could get a guy that is maybe a tier 2 player, and I don't say that disrespectfully at all, but with all due respect, I think if you could get a tier 2 player that maybe could average 17, 18 points, give you 6 or 7 rebounds, I think that could be enough to get you over the hump. And think about this. I will say this, because just by adding a star player or the idea of adding a star player doesn't mean you have to make a trade or sign someone in free agency. I think you can see players take steps forward that are already in your organization. And remember, everything you did last year in the playoffs, you did without DeAndre Hunter, who was injured. And DeAndre Hunter last year averaged 15 points, 5 rebounds, and almost 3 assists per game. If DeAndre Hunter, very young player, can take a step forward, he's a really good perimeter defender, maybe get up to 17, 18 points, get up to 6 or 7 rebounds a game, he might be that star player that wasn't there in the postseason that can be there for you and be a difference maker. But I don't think they need a superstar. I think you're looking for one more star to emerge.
Yeah, I agree with that, BJ. Look at what a difference a year makes, right? Or what a difference a series makes. Or Trae Young signing for the Supermax. It surprised me, John Collins signing for the $125 million extension. It's going to be the right person, because once again, real similar to the Braves, the chemistry with the Hawks is different. I mean, you talking about a team that fired their head coach halfway during the season to re-sign sign their interim coach Nate McMillan to a contract extension because of what they did, lost only to the NBA champs, Milwaukee Bucks. I think, Kevin, right now, I mean, the process is in Atlanta. It's not in Philly. It's working. I don't know why John Collins got us over here in suspense. Like, John, I don't care if somebody would have came 150, you don't get your behind back in there with them Hawks. Because once again, I mean, BJ, something we talked about, he wants to live up to that 120. Like 120, we're talking about 125 million. He only got 125. What? That used to be the max. Now, guys are getting 200, but I do think it's going to be the right fit. I always go back to rim protectors. You got shooters. I know that DeAndre Hunter, we forget the fact they did all they did last year without DeAndre Hunter. Oh, my God. You talking about the kid they got from Duke, kid they got from Auburn. But I think that you still want having a veteran presence that's going to jail. Don't come in talking about, hey, don't come in here talking loud, man. We was in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. We know what we're doing over here. Trae is the guy. I think, Lou, you re-sign him. But if you can add maybe another wing, maybe another rim protector, it's only going to help, because these guys playing consistent defense is only going to help them. But, yeah, I love what they're doing. Hopefully you sign a veteran piece, because I'm sorry if Trae Young would have re-signed with the Hawks, he would have re-signed with the Lakers, because they signing everybody right now.
Yeah, they're just throwing money around at everybody to come play in LA. Moving along, take 2. How absurd has the Braves season been? 2.5 games out of first place, not one day spent over 500 the entirety of the season. Half of their starting 8 replaced from opening day, yet there they are.
I think the winning record thing is really strange, because you're sitting here in August, right? We're not in May. You're in August, and you're talking about a team not only being a contender for a division title, but maybe in some ways being a leading contender for the division title, and you haven't had a winning record once. Like, not 1-0, not 3-2, not 8-7. You haven't had a winning record. This literally has not been a winning team. And what's strange too, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday, is the run differential. And I know that's kind of an abstract for folks who don't know what that is. You total up all your runs, all of the runs of your opponent, and you see where you are plus minus. There are only 8 teams in all of Major League Baseball that have a better run differential than you. And almost half of them are in the NL West. Outside of the NL West, there have only been a handful of teams in Major League Baseball that have been more dominant than you in terms of your run differential. And despite that, you have not had one game with a winning record. I mean, I don't know how often in baseball history you've had something like that. I think I mentioned it yesterday. The team in baseball that has the closest run differential to the Atlanta Braves in terms of total run differential for the season is the Oakland A's, and they're a dozen games above 500. And the Braves have had, kind of those weird 24-3, 15-1 type wins, and then you have a week where you can't score more than 3 runs, but it's very weird to talk about a team that technically has not had a winning record and technically is in 3rd place in the division because the Phillies are a half game in front of you, and look at them and go, oh yeah, they're in prime position for a run to take over the NL East. A team that lost Ronald Acuna for the season, that lost maybe the best player in baseball in terms of position players in the entire sport. So yeah, I think Atlanta is in a really unique position. And they've been average, like in every respect. Kevin, I was looking at some of the splits. Not only are you talking about a team that's 53 and 54 overall, what's your record at home? Oh, you're 27 and 27. What's your record away? You're 26 and 27. Oh yeah, what have you been over your last 10 games? We know that, 5 and 5. So you've been average in every respect, but yet you're in a position, and maybe if you look at kind of the schedule that's upcoming, to be considered the favorite in the East, it's just crazy.
It has been absurd, but it's the Braves, right? It's the Braves. The Braves are finding a way to get it done. That's what happened, BJ and Kevin, when you have a winning culture. Not a championship culture, but a winning culture. This is a franchise that is finding a way to get it done in spite of everything. Because to me, that is what makes it more absurd. People gonna look back at this season and say, oh, look at what the Braves do. No, they're doing this in spite of who? Ronald Acuna Jr., even though he did contribute. I mean, they used to have a guy that put on a panda hat, a panda head when you hit a home run, and it was accepted. Now he's gone. I mean, Huascar Noah, if he can realize that you're not gonna win punching doors, you're gonna lose that battle. Mike Soroka was a distraction, even though, so I think with everything, Marcell Ozuna, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. When you're 2.5 games out, it is absurd, BJ. I mean, the market corrections, the numbers corrections, BJ, whatever you saying, are the Braves going against your norms, BJ, that you look at? You're always talking about it's got to come to an end, right? I mean, what anomalies, things that you can't explain, all these different words that you and Kevin know that, I know what they mean. I can't really say them, as eloquently as y'all said on the air. It is absurd, BJ, but is it a BJ absurd because how is it happening? Or is it absurd because even with all these factors, they are finding a way to stay in it and, dare I say, going to possibly win this thing down the stretch?
Yeah, I think like you're saying, it just sort of defies logic with everything. I agree with you. I mean, you've not had a winning record. Ronald Acuna, I think every single one of us, Kevin, if we're being honest, Ben, looked around when Ronald Acuna had the injury and you felt terrible for him, out for a season. You looked around and went, yeah. I mean, no team in baseball can lose Ronald Acuna. And you kind of felt like the season was over. And I'm not saying it's all because of the Braves, because, Kevin, you mentioned it a couple of days ago. Look, if you were in any other division in baseball, you're not winning the division. It's over. The Mets have been average. The Phillies have been average, but you're in position. And you can play good baseball down the stretch. You just may win this thing.
Yeah, it's just been a strange season all the way around. Hopefully the win-loss thing gets broken tonight with a win. But, BJ, just another one of those weird anomalies. Like, unless Rob Manfred has changed the rules, you can only play with 3 outfielders at a time, right? You know how many people have played the outfield for the Braves in 2021? Care to take a guess?
At least a half dozen, 7, 8.
11.
Wow.
You can play 3 outfielders at a time. The Braves have played 11 different dudes in the outfield here in 2021. It's just absolutely incredible. Moving along, take 3 today is National Chocolate Chip Cookie Day. I don't know if there's an International Chocolate Chip Cookie Day. I'm sure there is, but fresh out the oven, still hot, still chewy, hadn't had time to set up and get crunchy. How many you putting down? How many can you eat?
All right, couple of key points to consider here. First and foremost, agreed. They got to be hot. They got to be chewy. They got to be right out. It depends on how the cookies are made. Like my mother makes kind of the small and thin chocolate chip cookies, and you might think at first, oh, that's not what you want. No, it is, because when it's thin, kind of all the flavors stand out more. It doesn't get, sort of swallowed up, and you can grab 3 or 4 and eat them real quick. But I think the key might be the milk. Because if you're saying, hey, come in, here's a whole plate of chocolate chip cookies, yeah, you can get excited and, hey, I'm going to eat, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But then all of a sudden it starts to add up and your throat gets hot and you start to it starts to kind of wear on you a little bit physically and mentally. But if you have the ice cold milk to go along with the hot out the oven cookies, I mean, I think you're talking about a real adventure. I think it could get kind of dietarily significant in terms of what you're
Put a
looking
number
at.
on.
I'm trying. I'm talking it out. Okay. I think all things, being equal and just sitting right after dinner and you walk in and it's like, okay, it's a Saturday and there's a plate of cookies and there's milk and we're not out of milk, or it's not one of those things where there's a tiny little bit of milk in there at the end of the carton. No, I think 16 to 18 is a realistic number. I'm serious. And again, I'm talking about the small one because my mother makes kind of the small, thin ones and the chocolate chips really stand out. But I think if you have that, I'm not talking about monster size of your face, size of your hand cookies. But if you have those cookies, right, with some cool, cold milk, I think you're talking 16 to 18, maybe even push 20.
2 dozen right now. And the thing is, BJ, this is when you stack them. I don't want to hear all this. Don't give me these size parameters. It can't be the big. No. This is the reason why it's 2 dozen. Because we talk about rarities, right? You know what happens more and more rare as you get older? Fresh cookies out the oven. Like, when's the last time somebody made fresh cookies out the oven? You can walk it. It's that smell. It's that anticipation. I mean, and the only reason why you waiting is longer because you got to be able to tell. And
now you got to fight your kids for it.
I mean, that's one of those things where you can't hide. Kids asleep, they'll wake up. Everybody got to be gone. Everybody got to be out the house. You got to attempt to do this on your own, because if we didn't do it, it's gonna be these are for me. I don't need no milk. I need some water, something to just be able to, because it's gonna take all the spit out your mouth. That's fine. But I'm doubling them up, Kevin. Like after I eat about the first 3 or 4 of the other ones, I can kind of stack them up a little bit, BJ. And listen, this is one of those things to where you eat it and look at it like, oh my, you talk to it. Like, where have you been? Like, I'm sorry. It took you 2 years to I know you thought I was cheating on you with the double chocolate chunk. I apologize. Or the peanut butter. But no, BJ, 2 dozen, bare minimum. And the last thing, I know the milk. Now, BJ, this is the thing, though. Are you going to get 2% milk? Is that what you're saying? You're going to have 2%?
Yes, I'm going with 2%. But listen, you mentioned the kids.
That's not milk.
You mentioned the kids. This is what happens at Nini's house, okay? There'll be a big, huge plate of cookies, and I'll walk out and go, oh, okay, there's enough for everybody. And one of my 2 kids will come out, and they'll grab like, a paper towel or whatever, right? And they'll lay it next to the plate of cookies, and they'll put like 2 or 3 cookies on there. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. They're going to only eat 2 or 3 and leave the rest. They'll take the plate that has like 27 cookies on it and leave the napkin with 3 cookies on it for everybody else. And I'll watch my son, most specifically, like kind of hold the plate up against his gut, try to kind of cover it up, and walk into the living room like looking over his shoulder with a plate of 27 cookies, leaving 3 on the counter.
Look,
He knows
BJ,
how to get it done.
and I'm gonna say this too. And maybe Kevin does this. Okay, I'm gonna get them down. Now I might not be able to eat them all like right there. So BJ, I might take me a cup, not a glass. Get a glass cup. I might stick a bunch of cookies in it. I might pour some milk on the top. I pour some milk on the top of them. Let it get, and I'm gonna drink them. I'm gonna just drink the rest of the cookies. I don't care. Nobody's getting these. Cam is like, listen, man, I can't get 1 cookie. You can pull back a nub. These are my cookies. I don't get fresh cookies ever. Like, Kevin, forget that.
I'm not wasting it with milk getting poured on the top.
When's the last time, Kevin, you had fresh cookies out the oven, Kevin?
It probably hasn't been that long ago.
We got to look up in the air going, man. Back in
Like,
life.
I do pull the dad card on. I'm like, hey, kids, y'all can't eat those till they cool down a little bit. They're too hot. But Dad, listen, do as I say, not as I do.
No.
I'm testing them out.
No, I'm gonna do what my dad used to say. My dad used to eat stuff in front of us and say, "Y'all think this for me? This ain't even for me. What are you talking? This ain't even for me. Get on out my face." And next thing I said, "Dad, you got chocolate all in your beard, bro. Like that. If it ain't for you, who you eating it for?" Oh, once again, the law offices of Troop and Thomas, we'll save the lives. It's not just during Halloween. I will save 24 lives real quick. You give me some fresh cookies out the oven. I'm
always looking out for my fellow persons out there. So that's take 3. We do it each and every day. This time we'll come back. Buy, sell, hold. Next, it's 3 and Out. Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Welcome back. It's 3 and Out here on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin Thomas, BJ Bennett, Ben Troop. Glad you are with us. We'll get you updated on some cool things happening with the Olympics. Also, ESPN has their top 25 preseason power rankings out. What does that poll look like? We'll get to that coming up in the final hour of the program as well. But first, let's play a little buy, sell, hold, shall we, here on 3 and Out.
It's time for Buy, Sell, Hold on 3 and Out.
All right, fellas, I will give you a college football talking point. You will either buy it, you will either sell it, or you will hold it. That's it. BJ, you good? All right, I'm just making sure. All right, Emory Jones will be a top 5 quarterback in the SEC. So 5 out of 14, he will be a top 5 quarterback in the SEC.
Buying it. This young man has been groomed to be the guy in Gainesville, recruited by Dan Mullen. He's going to be Dan Mullen's first quarterback that he recruited to start at Florida. We've seen him in limited action, and he's looked good. Has a great touch on his downfield throws. Is a guy that I think PFF said had a very high rushing grade a year ago. I think he's going to be very good. I will buy.
I will buy it also. I mean, you think about a guy that's been in the offense now going on his 4th year, was able to sit back and learn from guys like Felipe Franks, Kyle Trask. And when everybody's looking at what Felipe Franks and Kyle Trask was able to do, neither one of those guys was recruited by Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen first quarterback that he coveted to run his offense would be that of Emory Jones. So yes, Emory Jones will be a top 5 quarterback. Watch out for the passing numbers, BJ, the passing efficiency. Watch out the QBR and watch out them rushing numbers. So like I said earlier, not Nick Fitzgerald, not Tim Tebow, not Dak Prescott, but good enough to play as well as, even if not better than all of them.
All right, buy, sell, hold. Sam Howell will throw for more yards and touchdowns than DJ Uiagalelei at Clemson.
I'll buy that. I think that's by design too, right? I think North Carolina's offense is built around spreading the football out. Sam Howell throwing it 40 times a game. Remember, keep in mind, I know Clemson's replacing Travis Etienne, but North Carolina is replacing 2 1,000-yard rushers. So I think they're going to be more focused on the passing game than they even were a year ago, 2 years ago, when he was putting up huge numbers. And I also think you're going to see DJU run the ball a little more. We've talked about his size. I think you're going to see him carry the ball, design runs, maybe 5 to 10 times a game. So I think, Howell will have a higher passing totals. I'll buy that.
I'll buy it as well. I mean, they're replacing a lot from on UNC, that running game. De'Ami Brown and those receivers are gone. DJU going to have a better cast around him. He's not going to have to do as much. It's definitely going to be very, very good. But Sam Howell, forget the fact that he's trying to outdo DJU. He's trying to outdo guys like, Spencer Rattler around the country. I mean, because he's still trying to be that number 1 overall pick, which, he still has a chance to be. So, yes, he's going to have to be Mr. Everything for that UNC offense this year. DJU is going to be phenomenal, but I think that not by design, BJ. Just to survive, in this ACC this year, they're going to have to win some games, not on defense, so I'll buy that.
Wow, Sam, both of y'all like Sam Howell having a big year. Buy, sell, hold. Amir White will lead Georgia in rushing.
I will hold on that in part just because of the depth. And I know there's a lot of excitement and understandably, around Kendall Milton and others. And you're probably going to see a rotation of guys. And we've heard this. I don't know if we'll see it come to fruition, but a lot of speculation. Could Georgia be 60-40 pass, 65-35 pass this year? But I also think people are sleeping on Zamir White a little bit. And we forget, he had 800 yards and 11 touchdowns a year ago. And even at the end of the season, in Georgia's last regular season game, he had 126 yards and a touchdown against Missouri. So I could see it. I could also see, a split rotation where it's really divvied up. So I'm going to hold with Zamir White.
I'm going to sell it, not because I don't think Zamir White is an incredible player. I just think that, fresh legs are always the thing when you talk about Georgia. We always think it's going to be the big name guy going into the season. The next thing it'll be one of these young guys. It'll be Cook. It'll be Milton and those guys. I like Zamir. I love the fact that, he came back for this Georgia team because he's going to help him. I don't like him for one weekend out of the year, but at the same time, I just think it's going to be, because it's going to be by committee, and I think it's going to be so many mouths to feed. Zamir probably going to end up being the odd man out, and they're going to expect him to be that veteran leader to maybe take less reps, take less carries. So for that reason, I'm gonna sell.
All right, buy, sell, hold. Clemson will lose in the regular season.
I'm going to hold for now, and that's solely because of the opener. Now, I get that for a question like that, that's really non-committal. I mean, I understand that that's basically saying nothing. And but Kevin, it's an option. You told me I had 3 options, so I'm going with one of the options here. A couple of months ago,
it basically just means you're not committing on the Georgia game. Is basically what it means.
Yeah. A couple of months ago, I really felt like Clemson was the significant favorite. The closer we get, I feel like Georgia has a better chance than I did, early in the summer. I do not think anybody else, right, is gonna beat Clemson in the ACC. But that opener, I'm still a little uncertain, though I lean Clemson. So I will say I'm going to hold.
Man, I'm going to buy it. And this is why. Because Clemson is one of those teams to where, okay, we know the first game of the year. We know it. But, something that I think Christian and you, BJ, was talking about before when Syracuse beat them. I mean, Clemson is one of those teams to where you got to make them play 4 quarters and try to run a 2-point conversion. I mean, try to do something dumb, a 2-point conversion instead of kicking the extra point to go into overtime. Clemson and DJ, you and those guys are going to be very, very hard to beat, BJ, but you know how it is. I mean, teams they can get bored. And sometimes you expect them to have their best game. Their B game might not be good enough. It might be just good enough to get them beat one game this year. So I know Notre Dame ain't on the schedule this year, and it could be a team that we don't expect them to meet the talent threshold. But for that, I will sell. Clemson will lose a regular season game, and I might not just be talking about the first game of the year.
All right, buy, sell, hold. Oklahoma and Texas will be trolled every time they lose in the Big 12.
Yeah, of course. Buy. I mean, and this is going to be a season-long theme, probably not only every time they lose, but every time they play. I mean, it's going to be, it's going to be a story all in its own. And anytime they get down, right, like if they're losing to Kansas State 17-7 in the second quarter, it's going to be, oh, you want to go to the SEC? Can't even beat Kansas State. So it's going to be there. Yes, I'm buying that.
Of course I'm going to buy it. They should be getting trolled. I mean, everybody think y'all going over to the SEC to do what? To get that cheese? Y'all ain't finna go over there and win. Texas can't even win the Big 12. Texas get trolled right now with the we're back and all these other type things. So, yes, I will buy the fact that they're going to get trolled. And because they putting pressure on the rest of the Big 12, Kevin, like, dang, man, I mean, how we want to leave? Well, you don't got to go, but you got to get the hell out of here. So I do think, so all that I will buy it. They're going to get trolled, should get trolled.
All right, buy, sell, hold. Miami will start 0-2. Of course, they open with Alabama and then have App State in week 2. Buy, sell, hold.
That's a really difficult. I mean, that is brutal. But I will sell that. I think at this point I would pick them to lose to Alabama and beat Appalachian State. And I do think Appalachian State is a fringe top 25 type team. You heard Anthony Trace say he thinks, look, Miami can play Bama closer than people think. But to start out 0-2 with De'Aaron King, all the talent on that roster, I'm going to sell that.
I'm gonna buy it because BJ, once again, I mean, okay, we go back to the GOAT, the greatest opener of all time, DeAndre Francois, Florida State, Alabama. What happened? I mean, DeAndre Francois obviously went out for the rest of the year, but you coming in with a guy that's coming off a torn ACL against an Alabama defense that's gonna be lights out. You're gonna be counting healthy bodies week 2, and I'm talking about Miami. I'm talking about how many guys going to make it through that whole game, how many guys are still going to be, dwelling on that first game. And App State, App State is going to be playing for something to prove because this is the first time in a long time I think they're not the favorites in their own conference. They don't like the fact they're talking about Louisiana, talking about Coastal Carolina, not talking about them. App can beat anybody you put on the schedule, not name Alabama, not name Clemson, not name Georgia, not name Ohio State. Oh, this is Miami. I will buy that. I see them boys starting 0-2 because that's a lot to dealing with Alabama week 1.
All right, buy, sell, hold. A non-quarterback will win the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, sell. Obviously, Devontae Smith a year ago kind of stood up for the wide receivers there. But I think to me, and we've heard the talk about JT Daniels, and I think you could look at Sam Howell. You could look at Matt Corral. I mean, there are a number of guys. DJ Uiagalelei, I think, is a leading contender. But for me, I think the clear favorite is Spencer Rattler. I think he's been a star for a couple of years now. You kind of had the break last season from the run of Oklahoma quarterbacks being right there, where maybe there was a little bit of Oklahoma quarterback fatigue. I think that's faded. This is a guy that is going to put up huge numbers. He's one of the faces of college football, and I think you're going to see him, 300 yards, 3-4 touchdowns every single week. What he does against Texas will obviously be a big showcase game. But don't forget, late, you talk about signature games, signature moments. I believe either the last week or it might be the second to last week of the regular season, they play Iowa State. Iowa State is preseason top 10. And if Spencer Rattler comes out and in November has a 350-yard game against a top 10 team, I think that might be it. So to me, the clear favorite is Spencer Rattler at Oklahoma.
I'm going to buy it. I think these quarterbacks might cancel each other out this year, BJ. Derek Stingley Jr., he's already saying he's looking to have an incredible year. And they asked him about playing on the offensive side of the ball. He said, whatever they need me to do. And they might let him get back there and return some punts. Kayvon Thibodeau, I mean, the best pass rusher in the country this year at Oregon. Not only is he the best pass rusher in the country, he also returns punts for the Oregon Ducks. So I hope, I'm going to buy it only because I do think these quarterbacks, while they're good, they might cancel each other out. I'm going to buy that. Give me Mr. Derek Stingley Jr., Kayvon Thibodeau, hopefully going to be able to hoist up the Heisman Trophy.
All right, a couple more here, guys. Coastal Carolina will repeat as Sun Belt champions. Buy, sell, hold.
I'm going to hold, and I think it's tough to go back-to-back undefeated in the regular season. Also, keep in mind, technically you had a co-champion last year. I know Coastal beat you did not have the my apologies. You did not have the conference championship game, I should say. Coastal Carolina beat Louisiana in the regular season, but they were not able to play that conference championship. I think Louisiana's right there. The Raging Cajuns, if you want to tell me they're the favorite by a hair, I could maybe even buy that. But I think Coastal's going to be right there, so I will hold.
I will sell it. I think Coastal's going to be a really, really good team this year. I mean, even when talking with their head coach, he was saying, while we might be a better team, than last year, it might not show up in the wins and losses column. We might not win as many games we did the previous year. And like I said, App State don't like the fact that they're not being talked about. Louisiana is always going to be a team to beat. So while Coastal Carolina had an incredible season last year, beating BYU, coming to Conway, I don't see them going back to back. So I'm gonna sell that.
All right, and finally, buy, sell, hold. This one could make some people mad. Georgia State will win more games than Georgia Southern. Buy, sell, hold.
I'm going to hold that as well, and the schedules are really difficult. I mean, really difficult for both. We've talked about Georgia Southern's schedule all offseason, where you talk about, Arkansas and BYU, and you mentioned FAU, and you won't have Tomlin now in that game too. Georgia State plays Auburn. Georgia State also plays North Carolina. So you're talking about some really difficult non-conference slates. I think on paper, you look at the experience of Georgia State and you say, hey, this could be a banner year for them, but expectations now for maybe the first time in terms of national expectations for the Panthers. Also think J.D. King's going to have a huge year. So I'll hold. I think they're right there in the Sun Belt East.
I'm going to buy it. I know Georgia Southern ain't going to like that, but I'm going to buy it. Georgia Southern was already trying to figure out what their quarterback situations are going to be this year. You look at, some news coming out of Georgia Southern saying, Tomlin's going to be a guy that's going to miss a couple of games. How does that affect J.D. King? Is going to do J.D. King things, but he plays the running back position. Still got to have stability at the quarterback position. And BJ, I like that Panthers defense. And I know they got Army and ain't nobody worried about those two. Anybody worried about Army and Auburn? That GSU rivalry, got real nice. I'm not going to talk about what happened at Sunbelt Media Days. I'm going to leave that alone. But yes, I'm going to buy that. I do think GSU in Atlanta will have more, wins than GSU in Statesboro. But
a little buy, sell, hold there. Wrapping it up with a big way there with Ben Troop. We'll come back. We got more to come. 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Three and out here on this Wednesday. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. A lot going on in the Olympics over in Tokyo. Sydney McLaughlin won the women's gold 400-meter hurdles in 51.46. Lowered her own world record by 0.44 seconds, which doesn't sound like a lot, Ben, but when you're running almost a half a second faster than the world record, that's a pretty significant drop, is it not?
It is, and she's been very, very impressive even during the Olympic trials. And I mean, what people don't understand the most about the Olympics, BJ and Kevin, is can I call upon? This is the Super Bowl, obviously, of track, but can I do it? Wait, because when you first get there, you got to wait on all these other events. Like you get over there at the same time, and you have to wait maybe like a week and a half to finally get to your event. And for her to even still, 44 seconds, off the world record, that means she is blazing. And she's jumping over hurdles to do it. So forget the fact that none of us in here can run 400 meters as fast as we could. We got to remember to jump over hurdles. That makes it even more impressive. But Sydney been doing it since, like I said, since she did the Olympic trials, and to be able to do it on the biggest stage ever. You got to wait 4 years. Very, very happy for her. So many records on this thing, Kevin. Look, the 19-year-old Athing Mu, posted a 155. 21 in the women's 800 meter. 19. Most people say, okay, when I was 19, I was a sophomore in college. Think she's a sophomore in college. Think she goes to Texas A&M. Very, very impressed by her because you're going up against grown women who this has been their whole life, right? This has been their whole life, and you like this. So let me get this straight. I finally make it to the Olympics, and I lose to a 19-year-old who is only going to get better. But very, very impressed. But Kevin, I know old Christian, the Georgia, the Georgian weightlifter, Lasha. 500, man. Let me tell you something. Because BJ asked me this. He did the snatch at 265, and he did the clean and jerk at 584. BJ asked me, being in your prime, how much did you clean and jerk? I ain't do that. 500. 500.
All right, hold on, because correct me if I'm wrong. When you say he did the kilo or the snatch at 223, that's kilograms. In terms of pounds, or right? That's 491 pounds. Is that right?
No.
Yes.
Yes. Look,
so he took 500 pounds and put it up above his head or right up at his head. 500 pounds.
Yes. I know me and Kevin always joke about this. But people, Lasha, he is a beast. No, he is a beast. He's a savage, whatever you want to call it. And you need to go see it. There wasn't any stress or strain in his mind. In his face. He went up there and did it. And once again, I'm going to do this for the world to see. I tell you what, before you go look at Lasha, because that is the gold standard, go look at how it's not supposed to look, because you're going to get a lot of that. I'm going to put 491 pounds snatched over my head. I'm a clean and jerk 584 pounds. No spot. Listen, throwing the weight down, clapping my hands, pointing to the judges, looking at my family, high-fiving. I don't even want to attempt that. So, yeah, these Olympians,
it's like Larry Bird in the three-point contest. Who's getting second tonight, fellas? That's what he did, basically.
Listen, when everybody's talking, basically, right? And then, Lasha walks in. Shh. Lasha's no, it's fine, y'all. I'm good. I don't got no ritual or anything like that. I'm about to go beat this weight up, though. Y'all know what I do. But no, I'm very, very impressed by everybody on this list from Sydney. I want to say.
I will say this, Ben, because I want to share this. Again, BJ knows this. Ben is like one of those. He will sit around the office and watch track videos of people running the hurdles. Sometimes you're like, watch this second hurdle. Track videos throughout the course of the year, not even just because it's the Olympics, but I've seen you do this middle of football season.
Yep.
Watch this dude run to 800 right here. It's like, here we go. Look at the get off. Look at the get off. And Ben's breaking it down. I've never seen anybody do that just on a random Wednesday. You go hey man, I'm about to watch this 100 meter hurdles and watch the get off here.
Because the difficulty, Kevin, I'm sometimes it's not good, but sometimes you kind of want to see people fail at this stuff to show you this is what your biggest fear is, right? My biggest fear is I'm not going to be able to jump over this hurdle. I showed Kevin yesterday a guy from Haiti, not going to say his name. BJ, he swagged up, when they were saying his name and, getting ready, they said, on your mark. and he got to that first hurdle, and all you heard was he didn't make it over that first when it was rough. What I'm saying about the Olympics, what I'm saying about track, BJ, real similar to what you love about soccer. It's beautiful when you know what you're looking at. Like when you're watching this thing, it is beautiful to watch. Sydney knew that everybody was going to be watching her in the 400-meter hurdles finals. She was the one to beat going in. She was the one to beat, arriving in Tokyo, and she broke the world record. So I'm very, 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 very in awe of these people. As a person that the first sport I ever fell in love with was track. Before I ever played football, I ran track, and I understand the degree of difficulty is extremely high. Like when people start saying, "Hey, man, you don't get a second time," meaning if I do my preliminaries and I'm not the top 2 finisher, I don't make it to the finals. I don't make it to the semis. If I don't get a throw long enough, so for me, these athletes are at the top of the top notch. It doesn't get any better than them. And to be on the biggest stage when you were supposed to do it a year ago, but had to shut it down for COVID, and to still do it. Shout out to the ladies. Shout out to the fellas. Shout out to America. Shout out to everybody at the Olympics. It is the highest honor you can get a gold medal when you put it in your mouth and you bite down on it. So shout out to everybody. This is why I play football.
Where does that come from? Seriously, because everybody gets a medal and they bite it. It's like, hey, is this real? It's like it's like
I don't know. I really don't know where the tradition came from. I probably should have looked that up. But think about how many people get to have to watch somebody else bite it. I'm going to say this. It's a dude by the name of Noah Lyles. He was supposed to be the guy who was supposed to bring the gold medal home for America. He got third. Still bit down on it. They call it he does the Goku energy for those of you Super Saiyan, fans out there. I think for me, he didn't win gold. He got the bronze. Let me tell y'all something. If I get bronze at the Olympics, I'm the truth. I don't care what you say. That means 2 people in the world beat me. And you're not one of them. So people say, man, all you got is third. Where was you at? Oh, my God. So Noah Lyles, congratulations. I'm just saying, even if you didn't place, man, you're an Olympian. So shout out to all the Olympians. Shout out to the Olympics for being able to put everything together with everything going on with COVID and different things. But shout out to all the gold medalists, silver medalists, bronze medalists, and the Olympians as a whole, because that is a great honor. And it's a young man by the name of Grant Holloway. He is the 110-meter hurdle. He got the world on his back. And for those of you, he called himself the Flamingo, and he representing them boys down there in Gainesville. His name is Grant Holloway. He's 6'3", about 170. And when they go pow, just look. Don't close, don't blink.
Gainesville, Georgia? No,
he's not. No. That would be Gainesville, Florida. The man is so fast. The man, he's like Muhammad Ali. When he go to bed at night, when he turn the light off, he's in the bed before the room gets dark. That is the Flamingo. I'm just saying, Grant Holloway, do your thing, young man. Oh, and by the way, if you want to be a swimmer, going down to Gainesville, just count them gold medals. We do it for real.
Are flamingos fast?
No, flamingos ain't fast.
I'm saying, like, that seems like an odd nickname for a sprinter.
I ain't never really seen a flamingo run, so I don't really know how fast.
I don't know. I'm just asking. BJ,
Kevin, all I know is we turned an Olympic segment into a Florida Gator promotional reel.
I'm sorry. But every time Brooks Koepka wins something, somebody just look at me. I wonder what you're looking at me for. Exactly. I'm not making a Florida segment. I'm just saying that's what happened. 13 medals in 5 days. That would be because of them swimmers down there in Florida. I want to be a swimmer, but you got to know how to swim to do it. So I couldn't do it. Play football. That's how it goes.
It's just a coincidence, BJ. It has nothing to do with anything else. We'll come back. We got more to come. 3 and Out. Good to have you here, 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Glad you were with us. We're learning all about flamingos now because that's what we do. We talk sports. Ben will say something about flamingos, and then we're interested. So flamingos can fly 35 miles an hour. So apparently they are presumably pseudo fast, I guess, in the grand scheme of things.
All right. So just to confirm, yesterday we got the fruit science update.
Yes.
Today we're getting the flamingo update. I don't even know that I've ever seen a flamingo move because when I go to the zoo, they're like standing there. They're just like not doing it. But didn't you say they're also filter feeders predominantly?
Yes. Yeah, they eat upside down. Like, so they put their head in the water and twist it upside down. And so they actually eat upside down. And they like filter the water through some kind of something in their beak. And so they can eat shrimp and all that kind of stuff. But they're a filter feeder that they actually eat upside down. Weird.
I mean, I've had some Cheez-Its upside down before when I'm like laying on the couch and my head's kind of tilted and I get some Cheez-It. I mean, is that kind of the same thing?
No, I don't think it is the same thing. But apparently they eat upside down.
Kevin said, no, it's not the same thing.
Yeah, no, 100% not the same thing.
Because you're being lazy because you don't want to put your head upright to eat the cheeses. But no,
yeah, one is by design, one is by pure laziness. You're right, Ben.
And the fact that you were eating cheeses without a court order, that's another problem.
Cheez-Its can be tasty from time to time. We'll come back. The college football preseason power rankings are out for ESPN. They've put them out. We'll break it down next here on 3 and Out. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio, streaming live, ESPNCoastal.com, live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Final hour of 3 and Out. A lot to get to here on the show. Of course, we are counting it down to the start of the college football season, and ESPN, of course, they will put out the preseason power rankings before we get to the first college football game. And as you would expect, Clemson, Georgia, according to that, going to be a top 4 matchup. Alabama, Oklahoma, Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State, your top 5. No real surprise there. Texas A&M, Iowa State, Oregon, Notre Dame, North Carolina, your top 10. Cincinnati, Florida, USC, LSU, Miami, your top 15. So, BJ, outside the top 10 there, really doesn't look a whole lot different than kind of how we ended the season last year.
Yeah, for me, for whatever it's worth, nothing really looks too out of place. When you go down the rankings a little bit, I'm always intrigued where the Sun Belt's represented. You had Coastal Carolina at 22 and Louisiana at 23. I do think that's right to have those two teams right next to each other. I would disagree a little bit that they're not top 20 teams. And granted, you're talking about maybe 4 or 5 spots, but I think Coastal Carolina and Louisiana have both earned the right to be ranked a little higher than where they are. I mean, Louisiana lost 1 game last year. That was to Coastal Carolina by a field goal as time expired, and Coastal Carolina went undefeated through the regular season, and Coastal Carolina dominated out of conference, including a win over a top 10 BYU, and Louisiana beat a top 10 Iowa State by 17 on the road. So I think when you look at those resumes, Louisiana and Coastal Carolina deserve to be ranked higher. I think closer to the top 15 makes sense to me. When I look higher up the poll, maybe a few spots higher for Cincinnati. You know, I think Cincinnati has earned the right to be considered the top kind of non-P5, well, Notre Dame's their top G5 school, if you will. Cincinnati, top 7-8 team to me. I think to have them outside the top 10 at this point, given what you're looking at with that roster, probably isn't quite giving them enough credit. In terms of the top, what can you say? The top 4 in some order is going to be Alabama, Oklahoma, Clemson, and Georgia. I mean, in the past, you've normally seen Ohio State in there. You're not going to see that this year because of their questions at quarterback. Every single poll you see, and this is ESPN's, is going to have Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, and Oklahoma in some form or fashion, 1 through 4. I would probably have Oklahoma 4 just for me at this point. But look, no problem with it. I think it makes sense. Ben, we've talked about Florida and how a lot of preseason polls for me have the Gators a little low. I think right outside the top 10 is right. I think Florida at 12 is fair. I've seen some polls that have the Gators at 19, 20, 21. I think that's missing the mark. But I think a good poll. I think a poll that for the most part makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm like Kevin, surprise. I mean, the usual suspects, Alabama, Oklahoma, Clemson, Georgia at the top, Ohio State. You look at some of the top quarterbacks in the country, Bryce Young, Spencer Rattler, DJU, JT Daniels. Ohio State is always going to have a big-time QB. Texas A&M got big-time posting aspiration. BJ, Iowa State look to be a team that's supposed to break into that top 4 this year. Oregon always has a good cast of characters, a good team. Notre Dame is Notre Dame. North Carolina, and Sam Howell. Cincinnati, Florida, USC. I am a little bit surprised. Well, I'm not surprised about what they're doing right now. BJ, with Coastal Carolina, Louisiana, it's almost like they're making such an uphill battle for them to have to be able to break into that top 10, top 15. They spend the whole season trying to get there, but I do think they are showing some love. I mean, BJ, you don't think it's strange? I mean, look, when I get from 19 to 25, Washington, Penn State, Texas, Coastal Carolina, Louisiana, Ole Miss, Arizona State, no App State. I mean, because think about this. When you start talking about a winning culture, I always go back to App State. They change coaches, no problem. They're going to run the football. They're going to be the team that you don't want to, schedule out of conference, even though Miami got those guys second game of the year. You don't think it's strange? I mean, ESPN, 2021 college football top 25 preseason power rankings, no App State in the top 25, even what they bring back.
I think you can definitely make an argument for App State being preseason top 25. I said earlier in the show, I think they're probably fringe preseason top 25. I mean, you look at the quarterback position, you bring in Chase Bryce, who was previously at Clemson, previously at Duke. You talk about offensively, you get Corey Sutton back at wide receiver. That's an NFL playmaker. You look defensively, some big-time stars back in the secondary. You also have Trey Cobb former Ware County Gator, one of the best linebackers in the league. So yes, Ben, I'm with you. I think you can absolutely make a strong case for App State being preseason top 25. I think if you were to do that, again, I would move Coastal Carolina and Louisiana up a tad or two. I think it makes sense for them to be higher. One name that stood out to me, Kev, that you haven't seen in a ton of preseason polls is Ole Miss getting in there at number 24. And you look out west, of course, it's Alabama. Of course, then it's Texas A&M, LSU. But there's Ole Miss, and I don't believe Auburn's in the poll. So there's Ole Miss as the fourth SEC West team, and I think that's in large part due to Matt Corral.
We'll see. I mean, I know that, when I look at the top 25, the first thing that stands out besides the teams itself is the quarterback play. Most of these teams in the top 25 have big-time quarterbacks, and these are going to be the headliners going into the 2022 NFL draft. BJ, none bigger than, I think, Spencer Rattler, Oklahoma, at number 2. And the one thing they give these great teams, they give them the benefit of the doubt. When I'm starting in the top 5, and if I do lose, I'm not going to drop out of the top 10. And I'm probably not going to lose more than 2 games, so I'm going to have a better shot. The College Football Playoff Committee, Kevin, once again, until we go to 12, we got to deal with them. The teams the College Football Playoff Committee, that it's an all-glass room that we can see them, but we can't see who they're voting for, or more importantly, how they voted. And when you ask, well, how did you guys vote? Well, BYU, they won a big game against Coastal Carolina. They lost. Well, who cares? It doesn't really matter. We're going to move on. So I do think the best teams, outside the best players, got the best quarterbacks coming out in this 2021 season. But Alabama is at the top. You can probably go to 2022, 2023, 2024. Alabama's probably going to be number 1. Even looking into the future. But that's why we watch. I'm looking forward to the season. I love the fact they do got Florida at number 12. I think that's respectable. But we'll see what happens. Just keep not talking about Emory Jones. Keep talking about JT Daniels. That's how I like it.
I would say along those lines, because I feel like this is kind of representative of what we might see with the college football poll when it comes out, the first preseason poll, BJ. But who's kind of best positioned to move themselves into that playoff discussion from where they're starting? I'm not going to say like Georgia, who's obviously already sitting there, but a little farther down, who's a team? Because we see that a lot of times. Somebody will start 10 to 15, 16, and all of a sudden over the course of the season move themselves into that discussion. Who do you think best kind of fits that and is sitting in a good spot here?
Well, I think people may be surprised at this, but to me, it's Cincinnati, and I know Cincinnati was right there for at least a couple of weeks, and then maybe some of the hype faded, as it seems to conveniently do around the mid-major quote unquote schools late in the playoff. But Cincinnati, I think, even in a losing effort, showed the country that they're one of the top teams in the sport in that Peach Bowl against Georgia. I mean, controlled a good bit of the game. You had a just iconic kick from Jack Podlesny, former Glenn Academy star, there at the end. That was one of the plays of the year in my mind in college football that helped Georgia get the win. But Cincinnati played really well. And the reason I think they might have, because I know what everybody's thinking, right? Everybody's thinking, come on, BJ, a G5 team is not going to get into that conversation. You're probably right. But I think this might be a little bit different this year, and here's why. Not only has the ACC, as you like to call it, Kevin, become more competitive and balanced over the years, Cincinnati's non-conference, and of course in the ACC, you're going to play UCF. And if you look in this poll, where's UCF? UCF, if they're not there, they're in there in most polls. Central Florida is kind of a fringe top 25 team, but Cincinnati this upcoming fall plays Notre Dame and plays Indiana. And if you look at the poll on ESPN, North Carolina is a top 10 team. Indiana is a top 20 team. Now, if you're Cincinnati and you were top 10 for the vast majority of 2020, you come back and bring back most of your star players for 2021. When you think about Desmond Ridder, the quarterback, you think about Myjai Sanders out of Camden County, the edge rusher. You think about Gardner, the defensive back, some offensive linemen as well that are NFL good. Your preseason top 15, top 11 or 12, you beat Indiana early in the year with an NFL quarterback. You move into the top 10, you get some hype. You beat Notre Dame in October and all of a sudden you're moving up into the top 6 or 7, and that game against Central Florida is probably going to be a game against a top 25 team. I think there's the potential with their schedule and where they're ranked in the preseason, because normally, and Ben, you were talking about this, look at Coastal Carolina, look at Louisiana. Normally with the preseason polls, the group of 5 schools are ranked kind of in the 16 to 20, 20 to 25 range. Granted, this is not the official poll, but this is the ESPN poll. Cincinnati's one spot outside of the top 10. And they have a game against Notre Dame and a game against Indiana and a game against UCF. Keep an eye on the Bearcats, I'm telling you.
I mean, BJ, once again, I mean, can they do it 2 years in a row? That continued success? I mean, it's easy to go out there and fly under the radar and do some incredible things. Can you go out there and be the same team when everybody's expecting you to go out there and do big things? Cincinnati is waving that flag, right? I mean, kind of like the Boise States of old, those mid-major teams that most teams, the world isn't really deeming you ready to be in the college football playoff. But big-time quarterback coming back. But I think Sam Howell and those North Carolina boys, BJ, could this be the year? I know maybe last year was just too much too early, even though you were placing a lot. No De'Ami Brown, no running game. Still got Sam Howell. Don't have to play Clemson in the regular season. Could meet those guys in Charlotte. Who knows what could happen? Could it be a shootout if you do meet them in Charlotte for the ACC championship game? So give me Mack Brown, them UNC Tar Heels, led by old Sam Howell.
And again, I think Mack Brown, if they can get off to a good start, Mack Brown obviously going to get a lot of talking points around the country. Obviously, a national championship winning coach, BJ and Ben, a guy who had North Carolina up in the top 4 during his previous stint there. And I think everybody's waiting to see if they can actually get that kind of a run back here under Mack Brown round 2 here.
And I'm in. I mean, look, I think they deserve to be the preseason favorite in the Coastal. I'm buying North Carolina. I do think, and I mentioned them as a potential dark horse a couple of days ago. I do think the key for North Carolina, for as much as we talk about Sam Howell, is going to be the guys around Sam Howell at the skill positions, because North Carolina, and Ben, I know you've mentioned this before, they return all 5 starters along the offensive line, and that is such an asset. That is such a big deal for a team that we in the media often overlook. We talk about quarterbacks and receivers and edge rushers. You got all your O-linemen coming back. That's a great start. But you replace 2 NFL running backs and 2 NFL wide receivers. You have Carter and Williams out of the backfield, and then you had Brown and also Daz Newsome out on the perimeter. So can you replace the playmakers? I think if you can, if you're North Carolina, yes, they're going to be in the mix.
I'm just looking forward to it all. It's so many storylines, BJ. That's why I always talk about the college football season is the greatest regular season you're going to have, because you think we know about the headliner guys, right? I mean, who's going to break into that top 25 to kind of be that Coastal Carolina of 2020 and 2021? I know that the best teams, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Georgia, they're going to be that. Can Texas A&M finally live up to the billing? Can Jimbo Fisher live up to that $7.5 million a year salary that he signed? It's been 4 or 5 years now? Can he live up to it? You're replacing Kellen Mond, replacing a lot. Every team's replacing a lot. I know JT Daniels, a lot of people saying he's in the best possible position, but that's why you watch. I will be watching, but hey man, it's a college football preseason, Kevin. Alabama's at the top. Surprise, surprise. These people don't know what they're talking about. Alabama's not better than Clemson. Okay, Alabama is the creme de la creme, the consolation prize of being in the college football playoff. You get to see just how good them boys from Tuscaloosa really are.
Yeah, I think Alabama's going to be number 1 on pretty much everybody's preseason poll, even with losing what they're losing. I mean, maybe you put Oklahoma up there, maybe, but I think Alabama's going to be number 1 on a lot of people's list. We've got so much more to get to here on this Wednesday. It is 3 and Out. Here, hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio. We stream live, ESPNCoastal.com. You can also catch us a video stream, Facebook, Twitter, our YouTube page, ESPN Coastals, our YouTube channel. You can catch the show there, archive shows there on our YouTube page as well. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you here, 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben broadcasting live across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network, ESPNCoastal.com. Also, find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, our YouTube channel at ESPN Coastal. Again, get an archive version of the show each and every day if you happen to miss any bit of 3 and Out. Braves and Cardinals coming up tonight. Dare I say it, because I shouldn't say it in any way, because two things have a chance to happen that have had a chance to happen for 2 weeks. Put 2 wins together, and you could be 500. I said it quietly as to not disturb anybody, BJ. But a chance to make it happen and have I don't know if 2 games really counts as a winning streak, but is it at the very least the start of one if you can get it done tonight?
What are you talking about? 2 games definitely counts as a winning streak. Now it's a modest winning streak. I think we all agree with that. But the last time the Atlanta Braves won 2 games in a row was almost a month ago. It was literally almost a month ago. So listen, things are moving in the right direction in kind of a weird way. It's not so much with your play as much as it is kind of the Mets taking a step or 2 back. But you phrased this in a way that made me sort of rethink it, Kevin, because we focus on the Atlanta hasn't won 2 games in almost a month angle. But they also haven't lost 2 games in a row in a while. So that's kind of good. You kind of balance it out. But yeah, you're 2.5 games out. And I didn't think this was going to happen. A month ago, 3 weeks ago, I didn't think this was where we were going to be with this team. Especially just the Acuna news was so impactful in terms of what he means to the organization, and maybe the best, right up there with Mike Trout, as the best position player in baseball. But I think Alex Anthopoulos was really smart around the trade deadline in terms of protecting the assets that are considered foundational pieces for the future, but also making the team better. And Kevin, you've talked about this before, how a lot of his moves, and they all haven't worked out. Ben, I know you've referenced Cole Hamels and, who was the Bautista and others, but most of his moves have been, I'm going to take low risk, high reward players like the Soler move, right? Where people look at Soler and go, yeah, he's hitting 198. But you also can look a little bit past that and say 2 years ago, he led the American League in home runs, and you were able to acquire Soler for not much. I mean that respectfully. You didn't have to give up a top tier prospect. And I know it's a very small sample size, but for the last couple of days, he's been one of your best offensive producers. And I think this is a team that does have a little bit of momentum in a strange way. And if you can find a way to put 2 or 3 together, I mean, Kevin, come next week, you may find yourself in first place with the way the Mets are going.
I'm like Kevin. I'm so afraid to say this thing out loud. It's like we are the non-superstitious show, right? Like we don't get into the superstitions and then things happen. I always tell the superstition depends on what is going on with a team that you like, a team that you root for. When it comes to teams you don't care about, who cares? But next thing you know, Kevin gonna come up in here with a beard that look like PJ's. BJ, you gonna come up in here with a mohawk. I mean, PJ gonna cut all his hair off. Whatever we need to do for this Braves team to get on the run, I'm like Kevin, we get a chance to potentially be in first place after this weekend, because I don't know what it is about this Braves team. It's like they do this every year, right? In some way, shape, or form. Kevin, either it's 2018, they superseding expectations. Ronald Acuna Jr.'s debut, 2019. Oh man, they're keeping this thing going. Ronald Acuna trying to go the 40-40 club. 2020, oh my God, don't do this in the NLCS. Just don't do this to me, Braves, with Ian Anderson and Max Fried. Overcoming what happened with Mike Foltynewicz in that first inning against the Cardinals. It's like this Braves team find a way to do it to us. But BJ, this is why we root for them, right? This is why you cover them, because they're good enough to beat anybody, and they're good enough, or should say bad enough, to lose to anybody. They're 50-50, but they're the best 50-50 team you've ever seen in baseball, because they're carving out a legacy that's never been done before. Just get on the road, just win 2 in a row. It's almost like Snick got to say, it's okay, fellas. Like, we can do this. We can win 2 in a row. I know I've been saying, hey, go out there and do the best you can. We got starting pitching going on all the way to the 6th inning. I mean, the bullpen don't know what to do. Like, wait a minute. Why y'all getting warmed up? No, it's the 4th inning, coach. No. He's still fine. Just stay over there. I'm going to call you when I need you. Just get on the road, BJ. Anything could happen. But if you're if your best player is out for the rest of the year, a guy that you looked upon to be a key piece in the lineup with Marcell Ozuna been gone, Max Fried looked like himself last night, but even he was shocked maybe, and you still on course to do whatever you wanted to do, that's a culture. I just think that for one night, just go ahead. I mean, because I think what happened is Kevin and BJ, they win 2 in a row. They can tell the Mets, they can tell the rest of the division it's over because they ain't went on a streak yet this whole season.
So just to confirm, hold on. So just to confirm, they win 2 games in a row. You think they got the confidence to just come out and say it's? I mean, I like it. I would probably try to win like 3 or 4 in a row before I come out though and say it's. But I understand your point. Listen, this is a team that has not put it together yet, and there's a chance they could. And I mean, to kind of summarize all this, it is really interesting that we're talking so glowingly and optimistically about a team that hasn't had a winning record all year and hasn't won back-to-back games in almost a month. But you have the pieces in place. And I also want to say this, Kevin, sometimes when you have a star like a Freddie Freeman, it's hard to kind of give them credit because you basically chalk it up, right? You assume in your mind, Freddie's going to hit 305 and he's going to have 35 home runs and 100 RBI. Didn't get off to a great start for whatever reason and was down, in the mid 200s for a while. And give Freddie a lot of credit. I think he could have, as a guy that just won the MVP, I think he could have, a month or 2 ago looked around and gone, we're 5.5 out. I'm hitting 260. Maybe this just isn't my year and it isn't our year. And he's really been grinding, really been improving. I think he's almost back up to 300. He's at like 295. And I think given where he was, give him a lot of credit. And I think he's been very resilient in terms of tweaking some small things at the plate, finding a way to get his confidence back. And taking the team, helping the team just find a way to stay close. But give Freddie a lot of credit for the last couple of weeks that he's had.
Well, I mean, rightfully so. A lot of people thought the Ronald Acuna injury was the death knell of the season, right? I mean, I think we were sitting here the day after it happened. It's like, well, if you were going to make a move, you probably aren't now, right? Because we just assumed this is a team that's not really going in the right direction. Alex Anthopoulos made some moves. Revamped the entirety of the outfield in the last couple of weeks. And now they're within striking distance. And it's kind of amazing, as you said, to think about it because everybody thought they were done. And Freddie Freeman, again, I think this is going to go down as one of the more underplayed, if you will, kind of things that he has done. But in the midst of all this and raising a batting average and leading the team was Freddie Freeman went like 33 consecutive at-bats without a swing or a miss. Like not once in 33 at-bats did he walk up there and when he decided to swing, did he come up empty on any pitch. And to me, that is incredible. That is dialed in as dialed in can be. And he has been on a tear, as you said. And for all the Ronald Acuna talk, when he went down, Freddie did what you would expect your leader to do. And that is step up and start carrying the team. And he has done that. And as you said, BJ, you have to give him a lot of credit for that because everybody was looking around going, this thing is done for 2021. Let's start looking ahead when guys come back healthy. And to their credit, they've kind of stayed the course, even when things look kind of And lo and behold, here they are, 2.5 games, which again is not much. That's a good weekend. I think when you're sitting there 5-6, it's easy to say the narrative, well, if you make up a game a week, it'll be good. I mean, you're literally a head-to-head series away from being in first place. You are a good weekend by you, a bad weekend by the Mets from being in first place. And that, to me, is a whole different mindset from where you were even a couple of weeks ago at the trade deadline, BJ, when you're saying 4 games, 4.5, 5. You're kind of in no man's land. Do you go for it? Now you're definitely going for it. 2.5 games out.
And I'll say the same thing about Ozzy too. You look at kind of the team leaders and Ozzy Albies, I believe, Kevin, I'll have to double check this, but I believe I heard on the broadcast a couple of nights ago that he leads the National League in extra base hits. And there have been stretches offensively where Atlanta hasn't gotten much offensive production. It's been Freddie and it's been Ozzy. And Ozzy's come through. Sometimes it's the little things, sometimes there's a couple of runners on and you don't need a home run. You just need a a single into the outfield and it's Ozzie Albies, or it's one of those nights where, the opposing starting pitcher is having a great night, and maybe the bottom of your order, and I think these guys have exceeded expectations. I don't mean this to be critical, but the bottom of your order hasn't produced. Well, it's been Ozzie Albies who's found a way to go 3 for 5 on those nights and give you a chance. So, a lot of talk about Ozzie being one of the best second basemen in baseball, and I think he's only affirmed that, validated that this season. Defensively, he's great. He's great running the bases. He's great, offensively. But I think just his consistency, his leadership, Ozzie Albies is also right up there with Freddie. Just been a huge reason for success.
When we look back on this 2021 season, you're going to be talking about certain guys. Obviously, BJ, when you look at a guy like Freddie Freeman, I think he was just pressing when the season first started because he's trying to be able to live up to that MVP. Ozzie Albies is always going to be a guy that's going to be talked about because he's good enough. And then when he gets on base, you see how well he plays, on defense. And I just think that when Ronald Acuna is out, he stepped up. In a big way, as Kevin mentioned. Ronald Acuna Jr. goes out the best season. You don't think that Snit and Alex was like, listen, whatever happens this season, we get a mulligan, right? But the team wanted to go out there and get it done. Austin Riley, look at what he's doing. Forget what he's doing offensively. Look at what he does defensively. BJ, we talk about your favorite player, Dansby Mansby. He's getting it done. So this Braves team is showing a lot of fight. A lot of times we always ask, how good is the team? You show me how good a team is if they get rid of their best player and Ronald Acuna, and then a guy like Freddie Freeman, plays his way out of the slump, which we always thought that he would. This Braves team has earned the benefit of the doubt. I don't know if they're ever going to have a team good enough, Kevin, to beat the Dodgers. I don't know, not because of the players, but because of the money. That wallet is tight when you talk about Atlanta because they're always looking toward the future and the present. But as far as like what they're doing this year, very, very impressed. They didn't throw in the towel, keeping pressure on the Mets, and dare I say, still got a chance to win the NL.
Hold on, Ben. Here's what I got to ask Kevin. We've been hyping up this possibility of a 2-game win streak for so long. Are we taking the afternoon off? Do we get the show off tomorrow if they win tonight?
No, I don't think we get to do that. But we'll definitely have something to celebrate when we come into the show tomorrow for sure. We'll come back. We'll wrap it up. Still some big news out there for Hawks fans. Georgia Southern with some news this afternoon. We'll hit that when we return. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back here, 3 and Out on this Wednesday. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. Some quick news and notes. Hawks get John Collins back on a 5-year, $125 million deal. BJ, I know he was looking around, but at the end of the day, how important was it to get John Collins back in the fold, even if maybe you think 5 years, $125 million might be a bit much?
Well, he's been a big part of the Hawks' rise. I mean, give Trey all the credit he's earned, but John Collins has been there too, putting in the work as a foundational piece. I think there were stretches in the playoffs where you didn't get as much out of him as maybe you could have, but he's been a really, really good player for the Hawks. And I think moving forward, this only shows him that, hey, we care about you, we need you, and you're going to be a big part of our success moving forward.
John Collins was able to benefit from the fact that before Trae Young got there, he was the core piece. He was the glue keeping everything together. But he is going to have to earn that money now, $125 million. And Kevin, give him a lot of credit. They tried to give him like a $90-something million deal before the season. 2020 waited, added a lot more zeros to that thing. But I am happy for him because he is a part of the core of what Atlanta's trying to do. And hopefully, if they can add a couple more pieces, get DeAndre Hunter back. I mean, hopefully they won't be a one and done in the playoffs in 2021. Hopefully they'll want to keep that trend moving forward.
Also, another quick news note: Justin Tomlin. It was announced by Chad Lunsford. Going to miss the first 2 games due to suspension for academic reasons. So he'll miss the Gardner-Webb game and the FAU game. BJ and Ben, he'll be back for Arkansas, but obviously in the short term, you're counting down towards the opener. Going to have to get somebody ready. Is it Graham, who was moved to wide receiver? Some thought maybe he's not going to play a quarterback. You don't really have a lot of depth at quarterback, of proven depth right now to go to. Going to be interesting to see what Georgia Southern does to kind of get themselves through those first 2 weeks without Justin Tomlin.
Yeah, I think one of the questions of fall camp, not a ton of experience there. We'll have to see over the next couple of weeks kind of how that depth chart takes shape.
I mean, it's going to be rough, but that's why you happy that it happens now, Kevin and BJ, so you can kind of put the game plan in and who is going to be under center.
Yeah, better to find out about this now than August the 29th or something like that, right before you're getting ready to play. We've got a lot more to get to as we go throughout the week. Thanks to Ryan Davis, Anthony Trace for joining us here on 3 and Out. If you missed any portion of the show, ESPNCoastal.com, our YouTube channel at ESPN Coastal. We'll see you tomorrow on 3 and Out.